The bitter wind howled across the Montana territory like a wounded animal, but it couldn't drown out the haunting cries that echoed through the valley. Xander Galloway pulled his horse to a stop, his breath forming clouds in the frigid December air of 1882. He tilted his weathered Stetson back, ice crusting his dark beard as he listened, uncertain if his mind was playing tricks after the long, solitary ride from Settlers Creek. There it was again, a baby's desperate wail carried on the winter wind. Folks in Settlers Creek would have laughed themselves silly if they'd known Xander had detoured from his path because of a crying child. Cold as the north face of hell, they called him. That Galloway fella's got ice water in his veins, bartenders would whisper when he entered saloons. 6 years as a bounty hunter had earned him both respect and fear throughout the territory, but never warmth. The crying grew louder as Xander guided his stallion, Midnight, through the deepening snow. The setting sun cast long shadows across the pristine white landscape, temperature dropping with every passing minute. He crested a small hill and spotted it, a broken-down wagon half buried in a snowdrift, one wheel splintered beyond repair. And beside it, a woman clutching a bundle to her chest, her face pale with cold and desperation. "Madam," Xander called, approaching slowly to avoid startling her. "You need help." She looked up, revealing tear-streaked cheeks and eyes wide with a mixture of fear and relief. "Please," she whispered, her voice nearly lost to the wind. "My baby." Xander dismounted, his boots crunching through the snow crust as he approached. The woman couldn't have been more than 25, her golden brown hair escaping from beneath a worn bonnet. The bundle in her arms squirmed and let out another piercing cry. "I'm Lily Turner," she said, clutching the baby tighter. "Our wagon broke down hours ago. My husband went to find help, but he hasn't returned. The snow just keeps falling and Emma won't stop crying. I think she's sick." Xander glanced at the horizon. Darkness was coming fast, and with it temperatures that could kill. He'd seen men frozen solid by Montana winters, their faces forever fixed in expressions of surprise at how quickly death had claimed them. "Your husband went which way?" he asked, scanning the surrounding area. "East toward Pinewood. Said there was a town about 5 miles that direction." Xander's jaw tightened. "There's nothing east for 15 miles, madam, and this storm's getting worse." The color drained from Lily's face. "Oh God," she whispered, looking down at her baby. "What am I going to do?" Without another word, Xander moved to the wagon, quickly assessing the contents. A few personal belongings, some supplies, nothing of great value. The woman was watching him warily, like a cornered fox. "My cabin's about 3 miles northwest," he said, gathering her meager possessions into a saddlebag. "We can't stay here. Your little one needs warmth and quick." "I can't leave," Lily protested. "What if Thomas comes back?" Xander paused, meeting her eyes directly. "Madam, if your husband headed east in this weather without proper supplies, he's either found shelter or he's dead. Either way, you and your baby won't survive the night out here." The harsh truth hung between them like an icicle. The baby wailed again, a sound that seemed to physically pain Lily. "She's burning up," she whispered, her resolve crumbling. "I've tried everything." "I know someone who can help," Xander said, securing the last of her belongings to Midnight's saddle. "An old Blackfoot woman who lives near my place, best healer in the territory." Lily hesitated only a moment longer before nodding. "All right." Xander lifted her onto Midnight's back, carefully arranging his heavy coat around her and the baby before mounting behind them. He felt Lily stiffen at the proximity, but there was no helping it. Body heat was the only thing that might keep them all alive for the journey. The snow was falling faster now, stinging their faces as Midnight trudged forward. Xander kept one arm around Lily to steady her, acutely aware of how small she felt against his chest. The baby had quieted somewhat, which worried him more than the crying. "Talk to me," he said after they'd been riding for nearly an hour. "Keep yourself awake." "Where are you from, Mr. Galloway?" Lily asked, her voice trembling with cold despite the shared warmth. "Kentucky, originally. Left when I was 16. What brought you to Montana?" Xander was silent for a moment. "Nothing brought me here. Everything else pushed me away." The wind howled across the open landscape, driving needles of ice into any exposed skin. Xander could feel midnight struggling through the deepening drifts, the horses breathing labored. "We need to stop," he said suddenly, guiding Midnight toward a stand of pines. "Just for a minute." Under the sparse shelter of the trees, Xander dismounted and helped Lily down. The baby had grown alarmingly quiet. "Let me see her," he said, unwrapping the bundle slightly. The infant's face was flushed with fever, her tiny features pinched with discomfort. Xander placed a gentle hand against her cheek, then looked up at the swirling snow. "We won't make it to my cabin tonight," he decided, "but I know a place nearby. Old Trapper's hut about half a mile west." Lily clutched her daughter closer. "Will it be warm enough?" "It'll have to be." 20 minutes later, they reached a small log structure nearly hidden among the trees. Xander broke the thin layer of ice that had formed on the door and pushed it open, ushering Lily inside. The interior was Spartan but found a small stone fireplace, a rough-hewn table, and a narrow bed with a straw mattress. "I stayed here last winter when I got caught in a blizzard," Xander explained, immediately setting to work starting a fire. "Trapper who owned it died years ago." Lily sat on the edge of the bed, rocking her increasingly fussy baby. "Emma's getting worse," she whispered, voice cracking. "I don't know what to do." The fire caught, flames licking at the dry kindling. As warmth slowly filled the small space, Xander turned to Lily. "May I?" he asked, extending his hands. After a moment's hesitation, Lily carefully passed her daughter to him. Xander cradled the infant with surprising gentleness, his large, scarred hands a stark contrast to the baby's delicate features. He felt her forehead, checked her tiny gums, and listened to her breathing. "Fever's high," he muttered. "Probably some kind of lung fever. Seen it before." He moved to his saddlebag and pulled out a small leather pouch. "Old Singing Bird, the Blackfoot healer, she gave me these herbs last time I visited. Said they'd help with fevers." Lily watched as Xander melted snow in a small pot over the fire, then added pinches of various dried plants. The cabin gradually filled with a pungent, earthy aroma. "How do you know about healing babies?" she asked. A shadow passed across Xander's face. "Had a younger sister back in Kentucky. She had 5 little ones. I helped when I could." When the mixture had steeped, Xander dipped a clean cloth into the warm liquid and gently dabbed it against the baby's lips. Little Emma instinctively sucked on the cloth, taking in some of the medicine. "We need to lower her fever," he explained, wringing out another cloth and placing it on the infant's forehead. "Keep doing this through the night. The herbs will help, but she needs rest most of all." Lily took her daughter back, a look of wonder on her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Outside, the storm raged, rattling the cabin's shutters and howling down the chimney. Xander added more wood to the fire, then settled himself on the floor near the hearth. "You should try to sleep," he told Lily. "I'll keep watch." "What about Thomas?" she asked quietly. "My husband." Xander stared into the flames. "When the storm breaks, I'll look for him." Lily nodded, settling back on the bed with Emma in her arms. "People call you Heartless," she said suddenly. "In the last town we passed, a man warned Thomas about that cold-blooded Galloway fella. Said you'd killed more men than winter itself." Xander didn't reply, just continued watching the fire. "But they're wrong, aren't they?" Lily continued. "No heartless man would ride through a blizzard to save a stranger and her baby." "Get some sleep, Mrs. Turner," Xander said softly. "Tomorrow will be a long day." Through the night, Xander kept the fire burning and regularly checked on Emma. The baby's fever seemed to be breaking by dawn, her cries less frantic and more normal for an infant her age. When Lily awoke, she found Xander gently rocking her daughter by the fire, humming a tune so soft it was barely audible above the dying storm. The sight stirred something in Lily that she quickly pushed aside. Thomas would be looking for them. Thomas needed her. "The storm's passing," Xander said, noticing she was awake. "We should head to my cabin. It's better supplied and Singing Bird can check on the little one." "And then you'll look for Thomas?" Lily asked, taking Emma from him. "Yes," Xander promised, though something in his eyes told a different story. The journey to Xander's cabin took less than an hour in the daylight. The storm had left behind a pristine white landscape, beautiful and deadly in its silence. When they crested the final hill, Lily gasped at the sight below. Unlike the crude trapper's hut, Xander's home was substantial, a well-built log cabin with a stone chimney, a small barn for animals, and even a fenced garden area now buried under snow. Smoke curled from the chimney, which made Xander tense. "Someone's there," he muttered, reaching for the rifle strapped to his saddle. As they approached, the cabin door opened and an elderly Native American woman emerged, her silver-streaked hair in long braids, her face deeply lined but her eyes sharp and knowing. "Singing Bird," Xander called, relaxing his posture. "Didn't expect to find you here." The old woman smiled. "Saw the storm coming, knew you would need help." Her gaze shifted to Lily and the baby. "Bring them inside. The little one is sick." Inside, the cabin was surprisingly comfortable. Hand-crafted furniture, shelves lined with books, and rugs woven in colorful patterns covered the plank floors. A pot of something fragrant simmered over the hearth fire. Singing Bird immediately took Emma, examining her with expert hands. "Lung sickness," she confirmed. "But your medicine helped. Good boy, Xander." Lily raised an eyebrow at the boy comment. Xander had to be at least 35, but the bounty hunter seemed unperturbed by the elderly woman's familiarity. "She will need more medicine," Singing Bird continued, mixing herbs with practiced efficiency. "And rest. The mother, too." Lily sank into a chair, suddenly aware of how exhausted she truly was. "My husband," she began. "He's still out there somewhere." Xander and Singing Bird exchanged a glance that made Lily's stomach clench. "I'll look for him," Xander promised again. "Rest now, you're safe here." For 3 days, Xander searched the surrounding countryside for any sign of Thomas Turner. Each evening, he returned to find Emma improving under Singing Bird's care and Lily anxiously waiting for news. On the 4th day, he found what he'd been expecting: Thomas Turner's body, frozen solid beneath a snowdrift, not 5 miles from where the wagon had broken down. The man had been carrying a bottle of whiskey, half empty. No proper coat, no supplies for the weather. Just the clothes on his back and liquid courage that had ultimately killed him. Xander buried him there, marking the grave with a rough wooden cross. When he returned to the cabin, Lily took one look at his face and knew. "He's gone, isn't he?" she whispered. Xander nodded, removing his hat. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Turner." To his surprise, Lily didn't collapse in grief. She sat very still, holding Emma close, a complicated mixture of emotions crossing her face. "How did he die?" she asked finally. Xander hesitated, then decided on honesty. "The cold. He wasn't prepared for it." "Was he drinking?" The question caught Xander off guard. "Yes," he admitted. Lily closed her eyes briefly. "He always drank when things went wrong, when we lost the farm in Kansas, when his brother cheated him out of his inheritance, when I told him I was expecting Emma." She looked down at her daughter. He wasn't a bad man, Mr. Galloway, just a weak one. That night, after Singing Bird had retired to the small room Xander had built for her visits, Lily joined him by the fire. "What will you do now?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," she admitted. "I have no family left, no money to speak of, just Emma and whatever was in that wagon." Xander stared into the flames. "You could stay here, until spring at least." The words surprised him as much as they did her. Winters are harsh, travel would be difficult with a baby. "Why would you do that?" Lily asked. "You barely know me." Xander considered the question for a long moment. "Because nobody should face the wilderness alone," he finally said. "Especially not with a little one depending on them." As winter settled into its deepest freeze, life in the cabin fell into an unexpected rhythm. Singing Bird stayed for 2 weeks, teaching Lily about medicinal plants and helping with Emma, before returning to her own home with a promise to visit again soon. Xander continued his routine hunting, checking trap lines, maintaining the cabin, but now he returned each day to find the place warmer somehow, more alive. Lily proved to be resourceful and hardworking, taking over the cooking and helping with chores despite his protests that she was a guest. In the evenings, while Emma slept, they would sit by the fire. At first, conversation was stilted, careful. But gradually, stories emerged. Lily spoke of growing up in Illinois, the daughter of a schoolteacher who died of typhoid when she was 16. How she'd met Thomas at a church social and been swept away by his grand plans and charming words. How those plans had crumbled one by one, leading them further west each time. In turn, Xander shared pieces of his own past his father's horse farm in Kentucky, the Civil War that had torn their community apart, his years drifting through the post-war South before heading west to escape memories too painful to face. "Is that why they call you Heartless?" Lily asked one evening in late January. "Because you don't let people see your pain." Xander's hand stilled on the saddle he was repairing. "I've done things I'm not proud of," he said simply. "Hunting men for money changes you. But you've stopped, mostly. Take legitimate work now when I can get it. The bounty hunting pays for the quiet months." Lily's fingers traced patterns on the quilt in her lap. "You're nothing like Thomas," she said softly. "He talked about being strong, about taking care of us, but when things got difficult he crumbled. You just keep going. Keep doing what needs to be done." Xander looked up, meeting her eyes across the firelit room. Something unspoken passed between them, something neither was ready to acknowledge. February brought a brief thaw followed by another brutal storm. Confined to the cabin for days, Xander found himself noticing things about Lily he'd been trying to ignore: the way sunlight caught her hair when she stood by the window, the gentle patience in her hands as she cared for Emma, the quiet strength that had carried her through loss and uncertainty. One afternoon, as the storm howled outside, Emma took her first tentative steps, staggering from the edge of the bed to Lily's outstretched arms. The baby's triumphant giggle filled the cabin, and Lily looked up to share the moment with Xander. The smile they exchanged cracked something open in his chest, a feeling so long dormant he'd almost forgotten its existence. That night, after Emma was asleep, Lily sat beside him on the bench near the fire, closer than usual. "I've been thinking," she said hesitantly, "about spring. About what comes next." Xander felt a tightness in his throat. "And I received a letter from my cousin in Denver last fall. She offered me a place to stay if Thomas and I couldn't make it work." Lily twisted her hands in her lap. "I could go there, start over." The thought of the cabin empty again, no baby's laughter, no quiet conversations by the fire, no Lily, hit Xander with unexpected force. "Is that what you want?" he asked, voice rough. "I don't know," she whispered. "A month ago I would have said yes without hesitation, but now." Their eyes met, and this time neither looked away. "Lily," Xander began, her name unfamiliar on his lips after months of Mrs. Turner, "I'm not good at this, at feelings, but having you and Emma here, it's been—" "Been what?" she prompted gently when he faltered. "Like finding something I didn't know was lost." The confession hung in the air between them, as delicate and momentous as the first green shoot after winter. Lily's hand found his, her fingers cool against his calloused palm. "I've been a widow less than 2 months," she said quietly. "I should feel more guilt about this, about how I feel when I'm with you." "And how is that?" Xander asked, hardly daring to breathe. "Safe," she answered immediately. "Seen, understood." A faint blush colored her cheeks. "Alive." Xander's free hand moved cautiously to her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone as if she might shatter at his touch. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," he admitted. "Wasn't sure I could." "The heartless bounty hunter," Lily murmured with the ghost of a smile. "Not so heartless after all," he replied, leaning forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their first kiss was gentle, questioning, a conversation without words. When they separated, Lily's eyes remained closed for a moment, as if memorizing the feeling. "We should wait," she said finally, though she made no move to increase the distance between them. "I need time. Emma needs stability. And I'll wait," Xander promised. "As long as you need." March brought the first real signs of spring to the Montana wilderness. Snow retreated from south-facing slopes, revealing patches of earth that had slumbered beneath winter's blanket. Birdsong returned to the forest, and the creek behind Xander's cabin broke free of its icy prison, gurgling with snowmelt. With the changing season came visitors. First singing bird, bringing early spring medicines and cooing over Emma's growth. Then a trapper Xander sometimes traded with, eyebrows raising at the sight of a woman and child in the notorious bounty hunter's home. Word spread quickly in the wilderness, and by early April, Xander returned from hunting one day to find Sheriff Jenkins from Settlers Creek waiting at his cabin. The lawman had ostensibly come to discuss a fugitive spotted in the area, but his curious glances toward Lily told another story. "Folks in town are mighty interested in your situation here, Galloway," Jenkins said as he prepared to leave. "Never figured you for the family type." "What people think isn't my concern," Xander replied evenly. Jenkins shrugged. "Just saying, a woman living with a man who ain't her husband raises eyebrows, especially one with your reputation." After the sheriff departed, Lily found Xander chopping wood with unusual ferocity. "He's right, you know," she said quietly, "about how this looks." Xander embedded the axe in the chopping block and turned to face her. "Do you care what people think?" "For myself, no, but for Emma." Lily sighed. "Children can be cruel to those whose families don't fit the proper mold. I know that from experience." Xander wiped sweat from his brow, studying her face. In the spring sunshine, she looked younger, the grief that had shadowed her features gradually fading. These past months had changed her, or perhaps revealed the woman she'd always been beneath the weight of a difficult marriage. "What are you saying, Lily?" She stepped closer, reaching for his hand. "I'm saying that I care for you, more than I thought possible after everything that's happened, but I need to be certain, for Emma's sake as much as my own." Xander nodded, understanding in his eyes. "The offer to Denver still stands." "It does," Lily confirmed. "My cousin would welcome us." That night, Xander lay awake long after Lily and Emma had fallen asleep in the small bedroom he'd given them. The cabin that had once seemed spacious for a single man now felt like the perfect size for 3. The thought of it, empty again, silent, orderly, cold, filled him with a dread he couldn't ignore. In the morning, he rose before dawn and rode to Settlers Creek, returning by midday with supplies and a small package wrapped in brown paper. Lily looked up from where she was hanging laundry as he approached. "You went to town." "Had some business to attend to," Xander replied, dismounting. "Where's Emma?" Napping finally. "She's been fussy all morning." Xander nodded, suddenly nervous. "Can we talk? There's something I need to say." They sat on the bench outside the cabin, spring sunshine warming their faces. In the distance, mountains still wore caps of snow, but here in the valley, life was returning in earnest. "I've been thinking about what Jenkins said," Xander began. "About appearances, about Emma's future." Lily tensed beside him. "I've been thinking about it too." "I know you need time," he continued. "Know you're still sorting through what happened with Thomas, but I also know that I love you, Lily Turner. Have for a while now." Her eyes widened at the declaration, the first time either had used that word. "And I love Emma," Xander went on. "Like she was my own, the thought of you both leaving." He shook his head. "It tears something open inside me." "Xander, let me finish," he said gently. "I'm not asking you to decide everything today, but I want you to know that I'm offering you a choice. A real one." He reached into his pocket and withdrew the package, unwrapping it to reveal a simple gold ring. "This was my mother's. I've carried it with me all these years, never thinking I'd have a reason to give it to anyone." Lily's breath caught. "I'm asking if you'll marry me," Xander said. "Not today. Not tomorrow. But when you're ready, if you ever are. In the meantime, I'd like to formally adopt Emma as my daughter, to give her my name and protection regardless of what you decide about us." Tears filled Lily's eyes, spilling over onto her cheeks. "You do that, even if I decided to leave?" "I would," he confirmed. "Because that little girl deserves every chance in life, and because I want what's best for both of you, even if that ends up not being me." Lily looked down at the ring in his palm, then back up at his face, this man who had ridden through a blizzard to save her child, who had searched for her husband even knowing what he would likely find, who had opened his home and then his heart when both had been closed for so long. "I don't need more time," she whispered. "I know what I want." Before Xander could respond, she leaned forward and kissed him, not the careful, questioning kisses they had shared in recent weeks, but something deeper, certain. "Yes," she said against his lips. "Yes to all of it." Emma's cry from inside the cabin broke the moment, and they both laughed, foreheads touching. "She has impeccable timing," Lily said, rising to fetch her daughter. When she returned with Emma in her arms, Xander was still sitting on the bench, looking slightly stunned. The baby reached for him immediately, and he took her with practiced ease, settling her on his knee. "What do you think, little one?" he asked softly. "Ready to be a Galloway," Emma responded by grabbing his beard and giggling, which they took as agreement. They were married 2 weeks later in Settlers Creek, with Singing Bird and Sheriff Jenkins as witnesses. The townsfolk who had whispered about Heartless Galloway for years watched in amazement as the notorious bounty hunter gently held a baby girl throughout the ceremony, his eyes never leaving the face of his bride. Spring bloomed into summer, and with it came changes to the cabin, a proper bedroom for Emma, an expanded garden, even a rocking chair on the porch where Lily would sit in the evenings, watching her husband teach their daughter about the wilderness they called home. Word spread throughout the territory about the transformation of Xander Galloway. Some refused to believe it. Others journeyed to see for themselves, often finding the former bounty hunter cradling his daughter while checking trap lines or teaching her the names of wildflowers. By the time autumn painted the Montana landscape in gold and crimson, Lily had news of her own to share. As they sat by the fire one evening, Emma already asleep in her bed, she took Xander's hand and placed it on her stomach. "Another little Galloway," she said softly. "Come spring." The wonder that bloomed on his face, this man they once called Heartless, was answer enough. "I never thought I'd have this," he whispered, drawing her close. "A family, a home that's more than just shelter." "It all started with a baby crying in the snow," Lily reminded him, nestling against his chest. "No," Xander corrected gently. "It started long before that, with a man who thought his heart was dead, just waiting for the right moment to discover it was only sleeping." Outside, the first snowflakes of winter began to fall, no longer harbingers of danger but promises of cozy evenings by the fire, of stories and laughter, of a love that had thawed the coldest of hearts in the wildest of places.